What are some of the most liberal countries on this planet? And what are some of the most repressive countries on this planet? We're going to answer these two questions in today's video. Liberty is a very important subject. It is a subject that I feel very passionate about because I believe in liberty, I believe in freedom, and this is a very special video. It means a lot to me. And before we get into the good countries and the bad countries, we're going to have a look at what liberty actually means. It means civil rights. And civil rights basically means that any person of any color, be it Asian, African, Caucasian, Latino, whoever, has the same rights in a country. And we're talking about the same right to do whatever they want to do. They can do the same things that a local person can do as well. Civil rights means that regardless of ethnicity, regardless of religion, regardless of gender, you can be free in the country. The country gives you the same civil rights, no matter what you look like, no matter how old you are, no matter whether you are a man or a woman, no matter what. The country gives you the same opportunities, the same rights as any other person. So we're talking about support and guarantees for equal social opportunities for everyone. A liberal country also complies with international standards, equality, and equality in terms of status, rights, and opportunities. Democratic values include social justice, freedom of speech, and rule of law. Very, 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 very important characteristics of any working, functioning democracy of the 21st century. Democracies are based on the principle of reciprocity. And what reciprocity means is that no matter who comes into the country, that person is giving equality. That person is giving reciprocity in many things, in civil rights, in property rights. They can become a citizen. They can own a company. They have the same freedom of expression. They can belong to whatever religion they belong to without having to change while living in that country. That's what democratic values are all about. Are you ready for the most liberal countries on this planet? When we think about liberal democracies, what comes to mind is, of course, Europe. Western Europe is filled with liberal democracies. They're all over the place. But now you might think, okay, I don't want to live in a liberal democracy that taxes me to hell, because the income tax rates and the corporate tax rates, and there are a lot of taxes to be paid to live in a liberal democracy. And some people say that the price that I'm paying here is just too high for the value that I'm getting. Regardless of whether you think that Europe applies tax rates that are just too high, we have to understand that there are certain tax exemptions that one can utilize while living in Europe. There are many tax structures that can be applied that would allow you to avoid taxes legally. So there are ways in place, and if you are a new resident in Europe, there are many great tax incentives available today. If we just take a look at Italy, a country that offers you a tax break, an income tax break of up to 90% if you decide to settle down in one of the most southern regions of Italy. So if you haven't lived in Italy before, you want to settle down in northern or central Italy, then you may qualify for a 70% income tax break. If you haven't lived in one of the most southern regions of Italy, then an income tax break of up to 90% may apply to you if you meet the requirements. The most liberal countries in Europe include Sweden, Denmark, Norway, Estonia, Finland, Germany, Ireland, Belgium, Netherlands, Poland, Portugal, France, Spain, United Kingdom, Italy, Slovenia, and many more countries. Europe is filled with liberal democracies. I wanted us to have a look at Africa as well. I think Africa is an underrated continent. There are several countries in Africa that are liberal, and you can see that there is progression. It's a progressive society, there is progressive thinking in place, and the countries we're talking about here include Ghana, Senegal, and South Africa. Tanzania and Kenya also have been improving in recent years. Taking a look at North America, we can see that Canada and the United States are the most liberal countries on that side of the world. Now you might say, well, again, we have the tax issue. Canada charges you a lot of taxes to live in the country, but Canada is a beautiful country. It's rich in nature, very friendly people, very hospitable people, And Canada has a lot to offer. It's a business-focused environment where it's very easy to network, quite easy to build a business. And like I said, Canadians, they're very friendly. It's quite easy to integrate into the culture. Without a doubt, the United States is one of the most liberal countries on this planet. But liberty in the US comes at a very high price. And again, we're talking about taxes here. The United States taxes its residents and citizens abroad. And even if you are a US citizen abroad, you still have to file your tax return every single year. So there is a big responsibility tied to US residency and citizenship. Costa Rica, Peru, Chile, Argentina, Uruguay are some of the most liberal countries in South America and Latin America. There is obviously more crime in Latin America than there is in Europe. However, what I am going to say is that there are areas, there are cities, there are towns that are very, very safe. And in fact, you may experience a lot less crime in certain areas and cities in Latin America than you would living in the United States. That's very, very true. I'm not saying that there are no safe cities or safe towns, safe areas in the United States. They certainly exist as well. But what I am trying to say is that the bigger cities in almost all places on this planet, with very few exceptions far in between, have gotten much, much worse in recent years. The big cities have been overrun by crime, and we're talking drug-related crime, we're talking about illegal immigrant-related crime, right? The big cities have gotten a lot worse. Now that we talked about some of the most liberal countries on this planet, what are some of the most repressive countries you should stay away from? It's a very important question. And there's a concept here, it's called a monarchy. Absolute monarchies are countries where residents and citizens don't have a whole lot of options. These countries, they want to do whatever they want to do with their residents and citizens. They don't give them freedom of choice. They don't give them reciprocity in civil and property rights. There's a lot of religious repression. There is no gender equality, right? There is no environmental awareness in many cases. These absolute monarchies, they don't really care about a whole lot. If you are a person who values his or her personal freedom, I highly recommend you not to get into an absolute monarchy, because in an absolute monarchy you don't have much choice at all. And if you move there and some people tell you, well, as long as you accept the religion, you'll be fine in a monarchy. In an absolute monarchy, because there are different forms of monarchies, right? They are constitutional monarchies, and then there are absolute monarchies. In an absolute monarchy, the monarch, meaning the king, the queen, whoever, is in charge, and they decide the most important things in the country without really considering a whole lot of things, right? They make the decision a lot of the times on their own, and maybe with their other royal members, people who are part of the royal family. That's how it works in absolute monarchy, but there is no democratic voting system in place. So if you come to an absolute monarchy and you're like, okay, I want to continue life as I did back home, and just accepting the religion is enough. No, that's not the point. The point is that you have to embrace, you have to embody the religion in order to live in an absolute monarchy. You cannot bring your democratic values to an absolute monarchy. That doesn't work. You have to fully embrace the culture, and that's usually not the problem, because you are an expat and you are okay doing that. But to ask somebody to change their religion if they don't want to do it is a little bit too much to ask, in my humble opinion. If you want to switch, then that's perfectly fine. But to make this a requirement in order to live in a country is a little bit too much to ask for most people. That's why most people would not want to live in an absolute monarchy. They just couldn't live in the Middle East. They just can't do it. And who can blame them? You have spent decades and decades to become the person who you are today. And now all of a sudden, you should change all of that. You should change all the progress you have made personally. You should change who you are. I mean, that's a lot to ask for. Another big problem with absolute monarchies is that they're very intolerant. So if you decide to do anything out of the ordinary in that specific country, you could end up in prison for many years and sometimes even decades or your whole life. My recommendation is that before you go to an absolute monarchy, inform yourself about the laws of that specific country. You don't want to get yourself into trouble. You don't want to cross the red line, which may not be the red line back home, but it is the red line in that country. So make sure you really inform yourself before you go there. Okay, now we know that absolute monarchies are the least tolerant countries on this planet. This is an undeniable fact. Then there are communist countries. We're talking about China, Vietnam. The problem in communist countries is that you cannot choose which political party should run the country. Like the people, the citizens, the residents have no option to choose that. There is just one party in place. If we take a look at the Chinese Communist Party, at China's Communist Party, then that's the only party to choose from. And the party selects whoever they think is best to run the country, or whoever they think is best to handle a certain sector. In a communist country, you have no choice at all. There's only one option, and you don't make the call. Last but not least, we have pariahs. And pariahs are places that nobody wants to visit, nobody wants to move to, nobody wants to have anything to do with. If we take a look at Nazi Germany was a pariah. The Nazis, they were a pariah. They tyrannized people, they terrorized people, they forcefully invaded countries, they killed millions of people. Just a very horrible regime that Germany had back in the early to mid 20th century. It was very bad, not only for the Europeans, but for the entire world. It was a disaster, a complete disaster. Today's pariahs include North Korea and Russia, and there are probably a few more countries that we should mention as well. Which of the discussed countries would you rather want to live in? Leave a comment below and let us know. Subscribe now and turn on alerts to never miss any of my future nomadism, dating, and business advice videos. Thank you for watching.